Since when we critique Judaism, but we cannot critique the religion of Islam? I can say that because I used to be a Muslim. I lived the life of a terrorist, son of an American mother, and a son of an Arab father, who she married my father in the U.S. She went for a visit to the Middle East, and she was prevented from going back to her country, the United States of America, for 35 years, held against her will. Many young American girls fall in love with Muslim guys. They fall in love and they get married and they move to the Middle East and never to see their country back again. There is no Muslim country that is signatory to the Hague Convention regarding the abduction of women and children. Islam, the religion of peace, does not permit a woman to leave back to her country if her country of origin is not Muslim and if she is married to a Muslim. The other myth Americans live with, that Sufi Islam is a peaceful religion. They wanted to build a mosque by ground zero, and the proponents of this mosque say, well, you know, Faisal Abdul Rauf is a peaceful Muslim. He is a Sufi Muslim. Americans don't read what these guys say in the Arabic language. In fact, my first discussion with the head of the CIA one time, I asked him the question, name me the Muslim scholar in the U.S. that you consider the most peaceful scholar. He gave me the name Hisham Qabbani, and I said, excuse me, have you read what he says in the Arabic language? In the Arabic language, Hisham Qabbani says, even though in the English he criticizes terrorism, but in the Arabic language he says, when the Mahdi shows up, the Islamic Messiah, Christianity will cease to exist. How is that peaceful?
No.
When Ahmadinejad spoke at the United Nations, he talked about the coming of the Mahdi, Islamic Messianism. In fact, I remember one time sitting in a restaurant, and I had a pastor and a rabbi, and we sat down, and he says, you know, I've been coming to this coffee shop for the last 15 years. The owners are Palestinian Muslim, and they're very peaceful. I said, can you two carry on a conversation by yourselves? I'm going to have a conversation with the waiter. The waiter came, and I began to talk to him in the Arabic. Of course, I greeted him in the typical Arabic language, Assalamu alaikum, and he thought I was Muslim. He did not know that I was a convert to Christianity. And I told him, I said, I'm sitting with a rabbi and a pastor, a Jew and a Christian. What do you think we should do to these guys? Don't you know the Prophet of Islam said that the day of judgment shall not come to pass until the tribes of Islam defeat the tribes of Israel? What do you think we should do? He says, no, we should not kill the Jew, at least not right now. We have to wait till the Mahdi appears. So then he left, and the rabbi asked me, what did he say? I said, bon appetit, enjoy the menu. We have gyros, hamburgers, cheeseburgers, french fries. You are not on the menu yet. No, Sufi Islam is not such a peaceful religion. I can show you a speech on YouTube, you can watch it, by Nazim Tabrisi, who was speaking to Recep Tayyip Erdogan in Germany, and he was talking about his speech in the Turkish language, talking about when the West will bow to Islam. That's the dream, because most Americans, when they think of terrorism, they think of the explosive act. Terrorism is the explosive act. No, my friends, terrorism is not simply the explosive act. Terrorism is also the Islamist political act. Terrorism is the process of building mosques on ground zero by ground zero and trying to replace your constitution with Islamic Sharia law.
That ain't happening.
Terrorism is a political act. Let me tell you what they say in the Arabic language, because most Americans, when they watch the Islamists come on television, they watch these programs on CNN and Fox News, and they hear all these things that is said simply in the English language. But what about what they say in their own language, in the Arabic language? Faisal Abdul Rauf, the peaceful Sufi Muslim, he says in the Arabic language, people asked me right after the 9/11 attacks, right after the 9/11 attacks, he was asked the question, so why do movements with political agendas carry Islamic religious names? Why call it the Muslim Brotherhood? Why call it the Party of Allah or Hezbollah? Why call it Islamic Resistance Movement or Hamas? I answer them this, that the trend towards Islamic law and justice begins in religious movements like these, because secularism had failed to deliver what the Muslim wants, which is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Hello? Americans, his definition of life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness is movements like Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Muslim Brotherhood. Is that a peaceful Muslim?
No.
He says the only law that the Muslim needs exists already in the Quran and the Hadith. Because Americans need to begin to understand Islam is not simply a religion, Islam is a religion and a state, and it's impossible to separate the two. He says, for that we collectively believe that the state that was erected by the Prophet in Arabia was the ideal model for an Islamic state. The challenge, he says, the challenge today in the Islamic world is how do we accomplish this in our current era. And then he explains how to accomplish this Islamization of America. He says an Islamic state can be established in more than just a single form or mold. It can be established through a kingdom or a democracy. The important issue, he says, is to establish the general fundamentals of Islamic Sharia law that are required to govern. He goes on to say, and he talks about how to establish all these things. Americans don't see what these guys say in the Arabic language. They simply believe everything they're fed up by the liberal media in the English. He goes on to talk about how to conspire against this country. Here's your peaceful Islam. He says people need to use peaceful means to advise the governors and government institutions. We also suggest to the governors and political institutions to consult Muslim religious institutions and Muslim personalities in the field so as to assure their decision making to reflect the spirit of Sharia Islamic law. In other words, become prominent Muslim figures and get up there in the government and begin to influence the president, begin to influence the State Department, begin to influence the lawmakers, so as the law here reflect and begin to respect the Islamic Sharia law. No, Mr. Abdul Rauf, Americans will not respect Islamic Sharia law. They will respect the Constitution of America.
That's right. No, not in that country.
Tell me about Islam. Tell me that I cannot critique the religion of Islam. Tell me if we cannot critique religion in this country, then everything our forefathers and everything they bled for is for nothing. We are allowed to critique any religion in this country, not just Christianity, not just Richard Dawkins, well, God is not great, or Christopher Hitchens. Christopher Hitchens said, what's that book? I forgot even the book. I bought it out of my mind. He's out of his mind, that's right. What's the book called? God is not great, that's right. That's Hitchens, sorry. I don't know. I'd like to ask Mr. Hitchens before he died the question. Would he write a book titled, Allah is not great? He would chicken out.
Yep.